Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Today I'm going to show you some examples of BOM comparison so that you can better learn how to use the BOM comparison tool and have a better understanding of how to set the various options of BOM comparison. For the tutorial I will use this file, the BOM comparison examples, which you can download for free from Engine Excel website. You will find the link in the description below. So first of all, let's have a look at what we're going to use for this comparison. This is just an example that I've made for the purpose of explaining the functioning of the BOM comparison. In this case, you see that we have this bike. This is what we call new and the old versions of the same bike, and you see that the components that are highlighted with a different color are different between the two. To give you an example, this item here has got the same code, B16, but the name has changed. In this case, the new name is pivot arm left, while the old name used to be pivot arm 1. And the same applies for all the other items. So we're going to use this example, so these new and old bikes, in the various examples that I will show you in this tutorial. First of all, let's clarify what the difference is between single-level BOM and multi-level BOM. This is going to be quite important to understand how to use the BOM comparison tool. Let's see an example of a single-level BOM. What you see here, these left and right images, are the representation of the BOM of these new and old bikes using a single-level BOM. What you see is that all the items appear at the same level. That's why it's called single-level BOM. And they are never repeated more than once. So this way we have a total list of the components that are needed to make the bike. This differs from a multi-level BOM. In this case, what you see here is the same representation of the same bike, so the new and the old bikes, but we have a sort of a tree. And the tree represents how the bike is made. To give you an example, you see here we have the frame assembly, and the frame assembly is made of these components. For example, the frame, the fork, the bearings, and so on. So this is a representation of sub-assemblies that then put together create the main assembly. In this case, when a multi-level BOM, it is possible that an element or a component appears more than once. For example, we have a back wheel assembly and the front wheel assembly, and you can see that, for example, the spoke appears in both of them. The rim appears in both of them. You can also see that here the rim appears in quantity 1, while if we go up here, you can see that the rim appears in quantity 2. So basically the item that you see here is the sum of all the rims that appear in this BOM. So basically the sum of this rim and this rim. So there is not right or wrong. You can use both a multi-level or a single-level BOM. This mainly depends on how your system is set up and maybe how the software that you use, for example, for CAD, outputs the list that you need. Good thing is that the BOM comparison tool is able to handle both the cases. Now that we have clarified the difference between a single level and a multi-level BOM, and we have also seen what we are going to use, so these new and old versions of the bike in this case, let's start to see some examples. First of all, we will start from a single level BOM. In this case, for this tutorial, I will use the BOM comparison add-in, and you can see that it's already been installed in Excel. Down below in the description, you will find also a link that will explain you how to install the add-in in Excel. But the same can also be achieved with the spreadsheet version of the tool, so there will be absolutely no difference. In this spreadsheet, you see that there are some examples, and for each of them, you have the BOM, the new and the old BOM, which are representation of the BOMs that we saw in here. And you also have some indications on which settings you should or you could use for making this comparison. So this way, it will help you to understand also what the difference is between the various settings. So let's start from this first example. In this case, we are talking about a single level BOM. So we will start the single level BOM tool. When we start this, first of all, let's have a look at the settings. So Maybe in this first example, I will be a bit more detailed, and then with the other examples, I will go a bit more quickly. The first setting to use is the results order. You see that we have three types of orders: alphabetical, new BOM, or old BOM. If you want an explanation, you can also click on this button, and this gives an explanation of what the difference is. But to be brief, alphabetical order means that the results will be shown in alphabetical order. So, for example, you see this item B004 will appear before item B005, and this item B022 will appear down the list. If we select new BOM order, the results will follow the order of the new BOM, which means that B22 will be the first item in the list, B004 will be the second, and so on. And the items in the old BOM will follow the structure of the new BOM. If we select old BOM order, it's exactly the opposite. So in this case, you see that B003 will be the first one in the list, B004 will be the second, and so on. And for example, B022, which doesn't appear here, will be shown at the end. The second setting is the request if to automatically combine duplicate parts. As I was saying before, a single level BOM requires that no elements are shown more than once. So if this is set to yes, the tool will automatically combine the items that appear more than once. If set to no, this will not be done automatically, but if any duplicates are found, the comparison will stop and the software will tell you that there are some elements that are duplicate and you will have to manually add them. So let's say using yes is definitely more handy. So for this first example, let's set this to alphabetical order and set this to yes. Now we have to select the ranges. So always remember to include the titles. So in this case, part number, description, quantity, and material. So we select the new BOM, we select the old BOM. At this point, we can go to next. Here we have to select the unique identifier, which is basically the part number, and the quantity. So let's select quantity. At this point, we can click OK. And here we have our results. So let's see some examples. Here we said that we order the results in alphabetical order, right? So you see that the first line we have this item which has got a 3. Second line is a 4, 5. Of course, these are numbers, but this will also be true if we're using letters. And so on. You see that number 23, which is the biggest one, appears at the end. We can also see the results here. So if we want to see which items only appear in the old BOM, we can just filter like this, and this will show you that, for example, this item B003 only appears in the old BOM, and if you go back here, you see actually that this item appears in here, but not in here. And we can do the same also for items appearing in the new BOM and items that have some differences. So for example, the spoke, you see that there is a difference in the quantities. Or these items, which I mentioned before, you see that they have a different name. So let's repeat the same example just for the sake of clarity with different settings. Let's change the settings to new BOM order, and then the selection is going to be exactly the same. Same again, we select part number and quantity, and here we have the results. So here, as we said before, the results are ordered by new BOM order. So you see that the B22 was the first item in the new BOM, and indeed it's actually the first item also in the results. While what was before at the top here, B003, is not in the new BOM, so in our comparison it appears at the end. So this is the logic. If we go the other way around, so old BOM order, it will be exactly the same logic, but it will follow the order of the old BOM. So at this point, let's have a look at the second example. This is very similar to the first one. So you see that the results order, as I was saying above, any of the settings will work. But in this case, this suggests to select yes to automatically combine duplicate parts. The reason is that there are some items that appear more than once. So, for example, if we look at the spoke, you see that spoke appears twice in this list. So here and here. And let's say this is not allowed, or we have to combine these items before the comparison is finished. And this is done automatically by the tool. So let's select the same settings. Maybe let's keep a new BOM order, and let's keep automatically combine duplicate parts to yes. So now we can select again the same BOM, new and old. And let's go to part number and quantity as before. And now this is the comparison we just run, and this is the comparison we ran before. And you can see that the results are exactly the same. And here you can see that the spoke is in quantity 68, while here the spoke were quantity 34. With 34 we get 68. So basically the software automatically added these two. Maybe let's have a look at what would happen if we selected no. So we select no. Again, we select always the same range of new and old BOM. And then again, part number and quantity. Here we get a message that says the new and old BOM contain duplicate values in the unique identifier column. Duplicate values are highlighted. Please verify. So you see here that we have a message that tells us, as we imagine, that the spoke, you see, appears twice. So that's why it's highlighted in yellow. So at this point, if we want to run the BOM comparison, but we don't want the software to automatically combine the duplicate parts, we'll have to, let's say, do this manually. Now we have seen these two examples of single level BOM. Options here are quite simple, so we've already concluded this. And now we can have a look at the multi-level BOM. In this case, there are quite a lot of examples. We actually have 7 examples, and this I think will help to clarify how to use the settings of this BOM. Let's start from the first one. You see that here we have quite a lot of settings to define. I will not read these because I will do this while showing you the settings. So in this case, we have to run the multi-level BOM. Let's click here. You see that the interface is very similar. Actually, it's exactly the same logic. So let's click on the settings, and you see here that in this case with the multi-level BOM, we have quite a lot of settings that we can define. So in this first example, I will go through them one by one. First one, results order, which is also specified here. Same as before, we can use new BOM or old BOM order. That doesn't make any difference apart from what I already anticipated before. Level indicator of the input BOM. This is quite important, and this defines how the levels are defined in the BOM. Maybe let's quickly go through this example. So you see here in the tree, each of these items is a level. So this is what we would call level 1, so it's the top level. And then we have level 2, which are basically the children of the top level. And then we have level 3, which are the children of level 2, and so on. So when you see a level, this indicates where you are in the tree, in the branches of the tree. So going back to our example, to the settings, the level can be indicated in various ways. It can be indicated by a number, which is what you see here. You see that the top one is level 1, then its child is level 2, and the children of level 2 are level 3, and so on. This can also be indicated by an index or by a group. We will see them in the next examples. This item, ignore first item. In this case, we don't need it, but basically this is needed if you have two BOMs that are very similar, but where the first item is slightly different. So imagine you did a save as of a full assembly with some minor modifications, and this save as has a different part number, but maybe you still want to see what the difference is between the old part number and the new part number. In this case, you have to select yes, but in this first example, we'll select no. Then multiply quantity by parent quantity. In this case, we can select both yes and no. Let's select yes so that we see the effect of it. What this does is that it makes sure that every child quantity is multiplied by the parent's quantity. So maybe I can show you an example here. So you see that this parent has got quantity 2 and this direct child has got quantity 1. But of course, when you buy all the components, this child will appear in this assembly, and this assembly will appear twice. So that means that also this child in total will appear twice. So if we want, if we select this option as yes, you will see in the BOM the total number. So in this case, the total number will be 2. Let's keep going with the other settings. So we said that we'll set this to yes. And then show level indentation. This is just an appearance, which makes the level in the results page appear like that. This helps to read at which level you are, but it makes absolutely no difference on the results of the comparison. This is just a visualization tool. Same is for this. This is used to grouping the results. Maybe I can show you an example here. So this automatically creates these groups that allow you to group the results by the level. I will set this to yes so that we can see how that looks like. So press OK. Again, we select the new BOM and we select the old BOM as we did before. Press next. And we select the unique identifier, which is the part number, the quantity, and in this case we also have to select which is the column with the level. Press OK. And these are our results. Maybe we'll start with the grouping. You see that we have these bars at the side. If you select here, you see that only level 1 appears. If we select here, you see that we can basically hide all the children of this number. So you see, click here, only level 2 appears. And if we click here, we will see only the levels 2 in the whole BOM. If we click here, we will see only level 1, 2, and 3. And if we click here, you see that this will open the level 4. So this is quite nice and quite useful if you want to try to understand what's going on. Also, before I was anticipating about multiplying by the parent quantity. So we were looking at this example, the brakes assembly, and its first child, which is the brake lever assembly. If we go at the results page, we have the brakes assembly, which is still in quantity 2, and you see that the brake lever assembly, which is his child, is also in quantity 2. And that's because we selected that option while running the comparison. So apart from this, the comparison appears exactly in the same way. So you can see that the items that only appear in the new BOM are marked in green, items that only appear in the old BOM are marked in red, and so on. So maybe let's delete some of these results so that we can see them a bit better. And let's go back to the second example. In this case, the settings are exactly the same. What we have here, you see there are, let's say, some symbols just to create some visual representation of the levels from 1 to 4. This is just to show you that the software can handle this. So we'll keep exactly the same settings. And we'll select again the new BOM and the old BOM, part number, quantity, and level as before. And we will see that the results are exactly the same. You see that when scrolling between the two sheets, the results are exactly the same. So the software automatically removed whatever was not needed in the level and just kept, let's say, a pure number. Maybe one thing I didn't show before is that in this column, we add the first parent. That's not something that you find in the original BOM. And if you click here, you actually see the whole tree of each item. So you see, for example, this item here, the first parent is B002, which is the first item with level 2 going up. You see B002. And the second parent is B001, which is actually the top level. And this is done for all the items. So for each item, you actually see the full tree or the full branch of the tree where the item lays. So actually this is needed by the software to be sure that we always compare items between the new BOM and the old BOM that are part of the same branch of the tree. So let's go back to these examples. Let's go to the next example, example number 3. The difference between this example and the previous one is how we represent the level. So in this case, you see that the level is represented not by a number, so 1, 2, 3, but a position, so 1 or 1.1. So you see that the child of 1 is 1.1, the child of 1.1 is 1.1.1, and his brother is 1.1.2, and so on. So we run this in exactly the same way. The only thing we have to change in the settings is the level indicator. So it's not a number anymore, but it's an index here. And if we click on the question mark button, you see that the example of a number are just numbers and indexes are exactly what we're looking at right now. So we select index, and we also need to define an index separator. In this case, it's a full stop. We will see in the next example also another example with a different type of index separator. Let's keep all the other settings exactly the same so that we can actually compare the results. So we press OK. We select the ranges as usual. So new BOM and old BOM. Next. Part number, quantity, and level as usual. Press OK, and we have the results. And here you see that if we click on the previous results and these results, you see that they are exactly the same. The only thing that changes is how we represent the level. But apart from that, nothing has changed. So let's scroll down to the new example, example number 4. This is again very similar to the previous one. The only thing we have is a different index separator. In this case, it's an underscore. So let's keep the same settings. With the only difference is that here we will place an underscore. Press OK. We select the ranges, same as before. Again, we select the usual part number, quantity, and level. Press OK. And you can see that again, the results are exactly the same in all the 3 comparisons. The only thing that really has changed is how we represent the level. Maybe I will now show you the same comparison where I will remove these items. So I will not multiply the quantity by parent quantity, will not show the level indentation, and will not group the results, just to show you what the difference is. So we select the usual components. Press and select again part number, quantity, and level. And this is how the results appear. So if we compare these to the previous comparison, you can see that before we had this grouping, which now in this latest one we don't have. We still have the one at the top, this always remains, but the one here at the sides are not there anymore. Also, we used to have an indentation here, and we don't have this indentation anymore. And finally, as we've seen before, you see that the children of this item were all multiplied by its quantity, so you see that they were all in quantity 2. While if we look at this latest example, this is the item, and you see that its children are all in quantity 1. So before, the item was this one, and all its children were multiplied by 2, while in this case, this is the item, and all its children have maintained their quantity. So it's really up to you how you prefer to see the results. You can set the settings as you prefer. Let's go to next example, example number 5. This is very similar to the previous examples, but in this case, you see that we have an input BOM that uses groups. So you see here, we don't have the level column anymore, like we used to have here. But in this case, the new and the old BOMs have a structure that is represented by groups also in the input BOM. So we have the new BOM here, and the old BOM down here. In this case, they cannot be on the same row because the groups are used for the full row. So I had to put them one under the other. So let's see how to treat this case. Let's go to settings. In this case, we have to select group. Let's keep all the other settings exactly the same. And then we select the ranges as we used to do. Of course, in this case, we will not select the level range, but we only select all the other ranges. Like that. In this case, we also don't have to select which column has the level, because of course we don't have any column with the level. So we only select part number and quantity. Press OK, and we have our results. And since the input BOM is always taken from the same bicycle, basically, we can also compare these two. You can see again that the level has changed, of course, but all the rest is the same. So we have different representations, but the comparison always works the same. And in this case, you can also see that we have this column level that is added. So even if the input file, so in the multi-level here, there was no level, the software needs a level to do the comparison. So the level is automatically calculated and added here. If we want, we can also run the same comparison and add in the grouping also in the results. That's up to us again. Let's go to next example, example number 6. This example is similar to example 1, but in this case, there are items that are already multiplied by their parents' quantities. So you see what we looked at before. You see that the children are already multiplied by the quantities of their parents. So basically this means that we have to run these exactly the same way, but this has to be no. I will show this as an example, but it's always the same. We select this. Oh, sorry. We have to select this as a number, of course. Press next. Again, part number, quantity, and level. Okay. And let's again compare these results with the previous case. What you see here, of course, is the only difference between the two examples is that here we have quantities 2 and here we have quantities 1. But that's because in this example, these items already had quantities 2. And again, that's up to us how we treat our BOMs. Let's look at the last example. This is similar to the first example, but in this case, what we want to show is that the first line has a slightly different part number. So you see here, we are talking about two bikes. The only difference is that the old bike is what we call a bike assembly and it's got part number B001, while the new bike, we've decided to rebrand it and call it carbon bike assembly, and we've given it a new part number because for some reason we decided that this was better for us. Well, if we look at the children, then the structure again is very similar. There are some items that are different, like the frame, for example, but also a lot of other items have remained the same. For example, we call frame assembly always in the same way. And a child of the frame assembly, for example, is the fork that has remained the same. So we might want to compare the new BOM and the old BOM. So what we do in this case is that we have to ignore the first item here. We keep all the other results the same. Maybe let's put this back to yes, because I think this is quite nice and it makes the comparison a bit more visual. So let's now select the ranges as usual. Let's, as you've seen before, select part number, quantity, and level. Here we have our results. So what you see here is that the software tells us the description of the top level is different. That's okay, that's exactly how we imagined. But you see here that the part number of the first row is now called the top parent. So basically the software has overridden the part number because we were aware that the part number was different. And in this way, the software could actually run the comparison by comparing all the various children. So here again, you see that the top level is always called top parent. For example, this tells us that the frame assembly has remained the same, but the child of the frame assembly is the carbon frame, which is not in the old BOM, while the old BOM has a frame, you see? Maybe out of interest, I can also show you what would happen if we run the same example by changing the settings with old BOM order. So in this case, again, we select everything as we did in the previous step. Select part number, quantity, and level. And let's compare these two. I will run them side by side so that you see what happened. So you see, this was new BOM order, and you see that the items in the new BOM appear first and items in the old BOM are added at the end. While if we do the other way around, old BOM order, you see that items of the old BOM appear first and items in the new BOM appear last. Now, in the single level BOM, when something is either green or red, so basically appears in only one of the two, the items are added at the end. In this case, since we have a structured BOM, items are added in the last line, but with their brothers, let's say. So you see here we have level number 2, and the new level number 2 is here. And if something appears only one of the two is added at the end here. So that basically when you close this doesn't even appear. If this had appeared at the end, it would not have been very easy to see where this item was coming from. We actually have concluded all the examples. I hope this helped you to understand a bit more how to use the BOM comparison. If you have any questions, you can always contact me at these contacts or also through the contact page on the website. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a good day.